Oh my God, Jack Flaherty finally signed. And guess who he signed with? Jack Flaherty signs a 2-year, $35 million contract back with the Detroit Tigers, which I called. This is the first time, I think, there we go. This is the first time that one of my predictions happened, like straight up. Straight up. I thought he was going to end up with them the whole time. I thought that having experience there. The thing with Detroit, and I will say this from my own experience and a lot of people I talked to, like, you got to kind of figure out the vibe there. It's hard to tell as a visiting player how much the guys that are there like it. If that makes sense. Because I've been there when it was been empty, and I've been there when it's been full. And you know, it's a tale of two kind of atmospheres. So having some experience already on the team, I think, goes a long way for getting you to re-sign with the team. But this is one of those little sweetheart deals or those pillow deals, as they're called. I believe that's the terminology we're using now, where there's an opt-out after the first year, so we can go back, throw well, and then go try free agency market again. You know, obviously there were three big guys, Fried, Corbin Burns, and Blake Snell, right? And then he was kind of in the tier 2, maybe tier 2B group, which he threw really well in the playoffs, won a World Series, and I think he was holding off to maybe go back to play for the Dodgers. That's probably what he was trying to do. I get it, but also, guys, we got to give him a little bit of credit, or give him a little bit of grace here. He is from California, and you know, playing close to home is something I can identify with for sure. So, but the deal, which pending a physical, includes an opt-out after this year, which Detroit will pay Flaherty $25 million. Second year guarantees Flaherty $10 million. It could be worth $20 million if he starts at least 15 games. Oh, so it's front loaded as well. So he's going to get $25 million, and then the back end, basically, it's an insurance policy against sucking, having a really bad year. So I like that. He's still only 29 years old. Another one smart, because then he has an opt-out at 30. And then he has the contract end at 31. So that's another round of free agency, which is also really smart. So I love that. I love that for the Detroit Tigers, who I have being right there for the division then this year. So Jack Flaherty, nice little pickup, nice little pillow deal where he's going to get his value, maybe not for as many years as he wanted to, but all things go well, he can just do it again next year. With the signing of Jack Flaherty, Tigers are still in play for Alex Bregman. We have not heard much movement there in the Alex Bregman sweepstakes, along with Pete Alonso. It's interesting because I feel like their options are getting very, very narrow and limited. It's an interesting situation we have with two corner pop guys, because here in the Lord's year 2025, we haven't seen as much, going for the three outcome, right? Like usually juice has been paid. Guys have been trying to hit the ball hard and try to develop swings that do that, because that gets you paid. Like that's what translates. That's how you get WAR. That's how you create a lot of scoring, and that's how you help your team win. And you need those on the corners. Everybody needs them. And there's so many teams that need this, but we're in a weird situation where there is some teams that'll pay, and then the rest of the teams are just chronically risk adverse, right? Those I feel like we have these bottom 6 or 7 teams that just aren't going to spend money. Pittsburgh, the Athletics, even though they did the thing this year, that's not going to be every year. They don't do that every year. They do that once every 5 years. So we're not going to count them. Honestly, the Orioles are stingy. Guardians, generally Kansas City, pretty much every team in both the Brewers, like all these teams like don't have a ton of money, and they're just kind of like hanging out. Or on the low side. And then the middle are all risk adverse. They could take some chances, but they're choosing not to, probably for business reasons. And they'll just quote, it's a business at the end of the day, just like always. The Marlins, yes. So there's these 3 kind of buckets of teams, and these middle teams like from number 8 biggest market to like number 22 biggest market, are all just bitching about the Dodgers because they don't want to have to do anything. They don't want to be forced to do anything. That's why we've seen like 5 different GMs say some out-of-pocket dumb crap lately. Like Hal Steinbrenner goes, guys, we can't do what they do. We can't do what they do. And I just imagine him always doing this. I don't know why. I just imagine it. You know, like we can't do what they do, even though we are the most valuable franchise in the major leagues. Like it just falls on, it just doesn't make any sense. So with all that happening, Alex Bregman and Pete Alonso left out in the dust, even though they're both very good players that would make any team they're on better. So if he lands with the Tigers, that's a huge get for them. I think that also closes up a little gap. They don't know what's going on with their first and third situation, right? We got Colt Keith. Is Spencer Torkelson going? Is Spencer Torkelson staying? We don't know. So with him at third base, though, they would be able to figure that out a little bit. And honestly, we can say what we want about Javi Baez and hitting. The guy can still pick it. So defensively, it's a pretty good defensive team at that point. If they have those two on the left side, pretty good infield. So missed the first part. Do we blame Scott Boras? Here's the thing. Scott Boras, who did he represent this year? Juan Soto, Bregman, Alonso. I believe Snell. He still has Snell, and then he ended up getting Snell's money, so he made a resurgence. Like he represented everybody, right? And you can't blame Scott Boras because he got some of the big ones and they worked. So like, yes, is the holding out and the waiting his fault? Yes, because that is his MO. He's like, let's put pressure on by holding out. Unfortunately, we're now at the point where these risk-adverse teams would rather just hold out forever, and they're not going to come around. So these guys, they're proving that they're going to do that, and these two guys are probably going to get deals that aren't they deserve better, probably for the most part. Flaherty also waited for a long time, but I think Flaherty's more related to the team that he wanted to be on. But like again, but Scott Boras, he. So the answer is a little bit yes. A lot of this waiting and missing opportunities is Scott Boras' fault, but it's more of his philosophy. He doesn't make things up or do like he's really predictable. You like know how he's going to approach things, right? You know how he's going to approach things. And so if he's negotiating with several different players for one team, those negotiations could look wildly different because the team's changing what they need as they sign guys, not the players. So Scott's going to be like, no, I need this quality of contract for everyone I represent. But if you're going to get 3 guys on the same team, usually that team can't do that for 3 guys. And that's what we're seeing with the Mets and Steve Cohen not being happy with that negotiation. That's what's going on. So it makes sense. But I hate it because it's hurting those players and their ability to get their value. But there's only so many dollars. I can rail and say billionaires have infinite money. It's not infinite. Okay. There is a limit to spending. There is a limit to, I think, what you can expect. I just ask for 50% of all profits to be spent on the team, on the players. That's your 50% of your revenue should go to players as your biggest expense because it directly correlates with your they make your money, so they should be your biggest one, and it should be around 50%. I'm not asking for more. And the way this thing fluctuates, we talked about this a lot, is like from 45 to 55%, right? And I think 50% is the fairest spot, and we're just all trying to move the needle back towards there. But what do people who own businesses and want to constantly grow those businesses do? They want their expenses to go down and to keep more so they can grow their business or, in a lot of ways, keep it and do whatever they want with it. So I think Pete's going to end up signing with the Mets. I think it's going to be like a 1 or 2 year deal. I think it's going to be a pillow deal as well. I think this guy's going to sign a pillow deal also. Big announcement out of Dodgers camp. Oh yeah, another thing. Shohei Ohtani on track despite a complicated shoulder injury. If you remember in the World Series, he tore a ligament. I believe it was the front of his labrum. So the front side here on his non-throwing arm, his left arm, which is his back arm and his swing, which is extension arm. So this is the issue that he's probably going to have more than anything. In addition to having Tommy John earlier in that year, or I believe that previous offseason. So it has slowed. He is on track to get back to pitching, even though this was cleaned up in just 5 days after the World Series ended, which was 3.5, 4 months ago. So he's still pretty. That's not, that's 4 months, maybe 4 months ago, 3 months ago. That's not a long time ago. And labrums are not a joke. So I'm going to be interested in to see what he has going, but not on the mound. I think he's going to be fine on the mound. I think that this is something that he's just going to get used to. What I'm interested to see is how hard he can swing. So pay attention to Shohei Ohtani and how tentative he is with the swings early in the spring training. I believe he's just going to try to run it like normal, probably rest a little bit more at the beginning. But of course, they have a shorter spring training. They win the World Series, and then they have to go to Japan on March 18th, which I know that all the Dodgers players are like, we got all the guys. We got Roki, we got Shohei, we got Yamamoto, but they're like, now we got to go to Asia every year. Which for me, I'd be like, this is great once. I don't want to keep doing this. I'm tired. You guys know how I feel about travel. It sucks. It sucks and I hate it. So I feel for you guys having to do that stuff. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch him come back. And I wouldn't be remotely surprised if he were ready to go and there was no problems at all, because he's a freak. The guy's a freak. He's the fastest kid alive. He's the fastest kid alive. Big rigs. This is a question we get fairly regularly, but I'm going to hit it again. MLB has to do something with these big deferred contracts at some point, right? Going to eventually have teams superstars like a $35 million payroll. I mean, I don't think. Again, let me just really quickly reiterate. I know I hit this a lot, but I'm going to hit it again. Deferring a contract doesn't make it. It's not the superpower everyone thinks it is. Putting a bunch of money on your books down into the future, like kicking the can down the road, is not beneficial for building value and running a business. Right? It's good from time to time, and they just had enough opportunities to happen where they could capitalize on it with deferments. But even the Dodgers don't want to have $1 billion in deferments at all times. They're going to eventually want this stuff to start getting paid out and coming off the books, because it's just expenses that is hurting the value of their organization. Having that much debt is not good long term. And that's why a lot of teams don't do it. And that's why a lot of players don't do it either, because the money's worth less in the future. The money's just worth less in the future. Inflation. I don't know if you've heard that term recently. So that's why deferments have always been available, but people don't do them as much because they're not that great. You would like to get paid up front. It just wasn't an option. What I will say though is there will be limits on it, because it's being wielded like a club and one team is doing it. So it's going to be balanced out, but again, it's going to be done in the negotiations for the collective bargaining agreement, CBA, in 2027. There will be things on the table that address or are meant to address the deferment issue. But back to Ohtani really quickly before we move on. Very happy that Shohei is feeling good. He's ready to go, and if he comes back and swinging hard after 4 months after a labrum surgery, there's nothing else to say. I will never ever be surprised by anything he does ever again. So, you could end up with the Bobby Bonilla problem. I don't know why Bobby Bonilla is a problem at this point. Like, why is $1 million a year to Bobby Bonilla a problem at this point? All right, moving on. Maximilian Vivian Scherzer. I don't know. His middle name's not Vivian. I just love saying that. Max Scherzer signs with a new team that he's never played with before, the Toronto Blue Jays. 1 year, $15.5 million. Now, if that sounds familiar to you, there's a good reason for that. That's $500,000 more than the other three old men in his direct market. Now we had the three. I call this the old dude free agency. Old dude free agency. We got Alex Cobb, Charlie Morton, Justin Verlander, and Max Scherzer. 1 for 15 to Morton, 1 for 15 to Cobb, 1 for 15 to Verlander, and 1 for 15, 5 to Scherzer. Now, if you think that isn't a beautiful, beautiful example of how free agency works in kind of a closed little environment, it's perfect. Those three guys are the best comps there are out there, and they all happen to free agents at the same time. So Max says, hey, Canada, I'll come. I'll rep you. Just give me a little bit more money than Justin. They're like, all right. So I like this. You know, he has battled injuries. Last year was a little bit of a debacle. He had shoulder fatigue. He had a hamstring at the end of the year. Then he got surgery on a herniated disc in his back. All this stuff has happened in the past 12 months. For a 40-year-old, how he's going to recover, I don't know. But the herniated disc thing happened earlier in the offseason. The guy's a workhorse. He's even if his legs were broken, he would still be pacing around the clubhouse. He's going to do the work. He's going to work really hard, and he's not going to be a lack of energy. So it remains to be seen what he's going to bring on the field, but I think the value he's going to bring is the veteran status, you know, and he gets to relink up with his favorite son, Christopher Bassett. So now they're back together. That's an endearing term, by the way. I loved watching Bass and Scherzer talk about pitching. I always try to sneak in and have a conversation with them too, just listen to what they're saying, because they're two wildly different guys. But they had all that. It was just a veritable smorgasbord of info. And now they're back together. And I think that the Toronto Blue Jays are one of those teams that has a lot of guys that underperformed the last couple of years, namely Bo Bichette. Kevin Gausman really struggled last year, but Kevin Gausman gets back into form and looks close to what he has in the couple years before that. If Scherzer can give him 25 starts and be quality, just be like a high 3, mid 3, like they're going to be right there, because that division is really competitive, but also it's kind of open at the same. I don't know. Like they're all good teams. They have teams with high ceilings. Same with the Red Sox. Tons of dudes coming off injuries. If a bunch of them come back strong, they're going to be really good. But they need a bunch of guys to come back strong. So I think the Blue Jays are the same way. They need some resurgence, but if they do, they have some interesting pieces. And adding Santander, if they snuck in Alonso or Bregman, now we're cooking. Now we're cooking with gasoline. But Max is just fun to have around, man. You know, even if he's not the best version of himself, even if he's not dialed, and he's working through some stuff, he's still awesome to have your team. It's just $15.5 million for a 1-year deal just is not a big deal, even though he is 40 years old, and usually that's not the best situation. Usually. Jorge Polanco resigns with the Seattle Mariners for a 1-year deal, $7.75 million contract. Now, I know M's fans, and there's a lot of M's fans in the room next to us with Henry. He's a big M's fan. People aren't necessarily stoked about it, but one thing you need to know, going into the season last year, his first year with the M's, he had a career OPS plus of 115, which is 15% above league average. Very good hitter, solid hitter, quality hitter, good hit tool. That's what we call a hit tool. And he played a solid second base. Now, I know he's mentioned he had a nagging knee injury. He had that cleaned up in the offseason. But my guess would be that the Mariners gave him the best offer for a deal, and he took it. But I think he's got to prove a lot here. I love Polo. He's one of my favorite teammates ever. Great teammate, great player, works hard, is a gamer, is a gamer. And he's a really good player, but he's got to go out. He's got to put up. But that answers one question. I've heard he's going to play first base some. I heard he's going to play third base, which is interesting. I don't know if third base is going to be his forte, but range was his issue at second. So maybe it is a better situation. I don't know. I don't know what type of third baseman he's going to be, but for some reason the Mariners can't help it but throw things against the wall and see what sticks. Buck Fanks. Record. Go back to the beginning of the show, and you can see all about that. We talked extensively about it at the beginning, at the top, as they say. All right, Carlos Estévez signs with the Kansas City Royals, which is, I think, a huge pickup for them. This guy is a very high-quality bullpen arm, one of the better ones out there. He signed a 2-year, $22.2 million contract. I wonder where that 2 came from, with the club option on the back end. Really interesting. The 32-year-olds, he's been parts of the last 2 seasons, has been a closer. You know, we know the big homer he gave up to Lindor last year. Sorry about that. He's got high 90s to 100 fastball. He was electric with the Angels. You know, he's not going to have to go and immediately close. I'm sure he'll share some of those responsibilities with Lucas Erceg, who is already there. And the Royals are on the up and up, and they grabbed another veteran presence that I think are going to help them. And that makes their bullpen pretty electric if the back 3 are all healthy. Pretty electric. And we're going to get more into bullpens in a moment with our main subject. But I do like this one. And, you know, get you $11.1 million a year. Love that. Do you think they should get rid of opt-outs? No. Why should they get rid of opt-outs? Opt-outs are a phenomenal thing. Yeah, I think opt-outs are a great leverage situation. They're a great alternative way to sweeten deals or swing some of the advantage one way or the other. Give one side power if they need it. Maybe that's all you need to get over the hump. Maybe it's not about money. So I think opt-outs are a great thing, and they should stay. I think we should keep opt-outs. Obviously, also, this was first reported by Ken Rosenthal, and it turns out, or no, this was also reported by Ken Rosenthal. The Royals were actually interested in Anthony Santander too before they pivoted to Estévez after he signed with the Blue Jays. All right, our final little subject, final piece of the news. Here we go. Barry Larkin. This guy, also doing research for this, by the way. Barry Larkin, so good. He was so good. Hall of Famer Barry Larkin has signed on with a group in his local Orlando to push for an expansion baseball team in Orlando, Florida, because that's what we need, another Florida team. He joins a group that attempted to get a team down there. They join the main contenders, Portland, Nashville, and Charlotte, to throw their hat in the ring. I am looking forward to the next expansion. I think that we're going to get 2 teams when we do. It's not going to happen, I don't think, in the next few years. Probably not. I don't think we're going to hear about anything being locked up until after the next CBA, but it might be in that conversation. But he would like to get a team in Orlando. What do you guys think about that? Would Orlando be a good expansion team? Let me know in the comments below. I'm interested as well. I don't think it would be, but I'm not the biggest fan of playing in Florida, playing baseball in Florida, because it was the Trop, bleh, and it was playing against the Marlins, bleh. So it just wasn't that great. And hopefully it would be an indoor stadium, or that would be the worst thing in the whole planet. So, but one interesting little tidbit here, per the 2024-25 Nielsen rankings, which ranks like media markets. Orlando's the largest media market in the country without an MLB franchise, even bigger than the ones that I just mentioned, Portland, Nashville, and Charlotte. Didn't know that. I would not have guessed. That's actually pretty crazy. Do people go to games in Florida anymore? Well, they will. They will. Is San Antonio still in there too? Florida is for preseason, but nobody down there cares for the teams they have. Well, I mean, the thing is, like, the population of the state gets cut in half in the summer. I've heard Montreal's phenomenal. That's a great comment there, Ryoko. So, Barry Larkin, keep doing God's work, and also love those glasses. You look phenomenal. And that's it for the news.